Hello, this is Jessica Lee Reeder with Vitalized Body, and I am so excited for this tutorial today. I am going to show you how to customize your settings for Myfitnesspal in order to assist you in your weight loss journey. This is perfect because Myfitnesspal helps you to stay accountable and aware of what you're consuming and what you're eating every day. So I'm going to walk you through the steps. Okay, so the first step is to create your account. I just recommend starting with free, and you can always upgrade later if the ads bother you. So you can enter in your weight and your height, your goal weight, your gender, date of birth. I'm just going to leave it as is, your zip code, whatever it may be, your username, you can pick that out, and then your daily activities. So you can kind of read through these and see which fits you best. And then how many times a week do you plan on exercising? So I recommend, I think 4 is helpful, and at least 30 minutes. If you can get up to 5 or 6 times per week at 30 minutes, even if it's a walk, that's great. But we definitely want to try to incorporate some sort of daily movement into your weight loss journey if possible. So what is your goal here? Let's see, 2 pounds a week, I think it's natural, sustainable weight loss. So I recommend 2 pounds per week. And then you can go ahead and just click sign up. You can uncheck this if you don't want to receive the news, but the news is kind of helpful, so you might want that. You can enter in addresses if you want to tell your friends. And then here's the thing, is that Myfitnesspal now is going to say, okay, well, here's your suggestions for you. Get started now. Well, these are great suggestions, but I'm going to really show you how to hone in a little bit more on goal setting. Okay, so now we are in we're looking here at my home, and I'd like for you to go to your goals, please. In your goals, Myfitnesspal is going to have these settings pre-generated, and what we're going to do is we're going to modify them. So for women, I think 1,200 calories for weight loss can be okay. If you're active, then I would probably put it at 1,400 or maybe even 1,500 depending on your activity level. And these are just general recommendations, but I find that if you go too low, if you go lower than 1,200 calories, then your body can go into kind of starvation mode because our bodies are really intelligent and it can start to store fat, and that's what we want to avoid. So perhaps you would err on the side of a little bit higher than 1,200 calories, and then if you end up going to 1,200, that's fine, but if you go below, that could be a problem with storing fat and hunger, and then that can create overeating later in the day, and that's what we want to avoid, right? So I'd say somewhere probably between 12 and 1,500 calories for women, depending on your activity level, is good. And then for men, also depending on your activity level, I usually will put anywhere between maybe 1,600 and 1,900. But if you're super active, again, like if you're doing 14ers and you're doing all this amazing stuff, then you're going to need more sustenance, more calories. So that's okay too. But let's just say that you have mainly a sedentary job and you are maybe just going to the gym or doing walks a few times a week, then I think that those settings are really good. So 1,200 for women, and then around 1,600 or 17, maybe in the 18 arena for men. And then your next settings here are carbs, fats, and proteins. And so what you can do is you can just go in here and you can change this. And I have found that when we think of carbs, oftentimes we're thinking of grains, really. And when I want you to think of carbs, I'd like for you to think of vegetables, mainly vegetables with a little bit of fruits and perhaps some grain, like some complex carbs like quinoa or brown rice or oatmeal, steel cut oats, things like that in moderation. So, carbs, I find at 50% is okay for weight loss as long as you're consuming primarily vegetables, some fruit in moderation, and minimal grains, like maybe no more than one serving per day of a complex carb if needed. Especially if you're active, you probably would want that. And I work with more of a lifestyle than a crash diet where you just take grains completely out of your diet and then you can never have them again, because I want you to be losing 1 to 2 pounds per week until you hit your ideal weight, your optimal weight. So let's see here. Fat is at 30% and protein's at 20%. I generally like protein just a little bit higher. And so you can kind of play around with this. I find a 50-25-25 ratio is actually pretty helpful for weight loss. But if you find that maybe you're eating just a little bit of more fat in your diet, then you can always increase your fat. On average, I would say your goal is to consume half your body weight in grams of protein per day, because protein is not it's broken down every day and it needs to be replaced, whereas fats and carbs, basically they can be stored for later use. So protein needs to be replaced, and a good rule of thumb is about half your body weight in grams of protein per day. And as you begin to log, you'll be able to see where your carbs are coming in from, where your fat is coming in from, and where your protein is coming in from. So that's just another benefit of logging. So I'm just going to go ahead and save these changes. And then fitness. So my thing is that I would recommend not linking Myfitnesspal to any tracking apps. So the reason why is because we want to just look at food. We want to just see where your macronutrients and micronutrients are coming in from. And when you add in fitness, then Myfitnesspal, I know it's meant for fitness, but in terms of weight loss, what happens is Myfitnesspal will say, well, you worked out, you practice yoga for an hour today, so you get to consume more sugars and you get to have more fats. And the reason why you're practicing yoga or exercising isn't so you can eat more, it's so you can feel better, so you can feel stronger, so you can feel just more positive in your life. And there's so obviously tons more benefits for exercise. But logging on MyFitness, I just would recommend not entering in your exercise. So you can just disconnect it from your tracker, make sure it doesn't track. And you can always add that in later if you'd like, but I just recommend starting out, just keeping it simple and not entering in your exercise. Okay, so the micronutrients. So technically, if you go back on the other screen, let's see here. Okay, so if you go back on the other screen, it says 33 grams of fat, 75 grams of protein, around 150 grams of carbs. We're not going to be like spot on with this, but you can basically kind of break down here the fats. And actually, let's go for maybe 18, 18, and 18. And then trans fats they shouldn't be in your diet at all. And the FDA is working on eliminating them completely from the American diet. But depending on what country you're in or what food that you're eating, it still may be in there. So you could see trans fats in your diet, but reading a label, they would clearly be labeled as partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated oils. And so if you see that on the back of a food label, just put it back away and find something that doesn't have trans fats, because they can raise your LDL, your bad cholesterol, and that's one thing that we definitely want to avoid. So speaking of cholesterol, I like to keep this right around the same recommendations as Myfitnesspal, but the sodium, I actually half this. It was at 3,000 mgs and I half it to 1640. And the reason why is because if we go a little over on our sodium, if it's set at 1640, then that's okay. But if it's set at 3,000, then the problem is if we go over, then we're really consuming a lot of sodium and salt in our diet. That can cause water retention. That can cause a plethora of issues as well for our body. And so we really want to keep the sodium at bay. So instead of using things like maybe salt in every meal to kind of spice up your food or add flavor, you can do lemon juice, all kinds of herbs and spices. I love garlic powder, coconut and means, apple cider vinegar, black pepper. So good. So just, as you start to log your sodium, you'll see that sodium will trickle in things like artificial foods and processed foods and just a lot of packaged foods as well, even if they're natural and organic. And so just keeping your eye on sodium is imperative. Potassium, I just leave this as is at the 3,500. That's fine. Fiber is pretty good at 25, but if you want to move this up to 30, then that's really awesome because when you consume more fiber, it helps with your digestion, it helps with your cholesterol, it helps with your blood sugars, and fiber is primarily going to be found in leafy green vegetables. And if you consume beans in your diet, you can also get some good fiber from beans as well. Fruits also offer fiber, so fiber is really good for weight loss. Sugars, this is where it gets me. This is the main thing I want you to change. If you were to change any of these settings, the number one setting that I'd want you to change would be sugars. Right now, this says 45. That is high. So the American Heart Association recommends for women that we consume no more than 24 total grams of sugar, added grams of sugar per day. And for weight loss, I recommend just 24 grams total sugar. So natural sugars are found in vegetables, fruits, and dairy. Added sugar is going to be found in anything else. Honeys, molasses, maple syrup, cane sugar, brown rice syrup, so many things. And this is not helping your weight loss journey. So log it at 24 if you're female, and if you're male, 36 grams of total sugar. And then you can kind of just keep the A, the C, the calcium, the iron as is. That's totally fine. Okay, so I feel pretty good about this. You can go to food. And here we go. Set a calorie goal for each meal if you want to. You can do that, kind of divvy up what you're eating. That's totally fine. I am on the premium version of Myfitnesspal because I don't want to enter the ads in. But if you are on just the free version, that's totally fine. That's usually what I recommend. And so you're more than welcome to kind of divvy this up. And you'll see 1,200 calories. It kind of broke it down, save changes. And then I could always have another tutorial if you want, but adding foods is relatively easy and you build up your database. And so, like, for instance, there's a lot of different brands in the system. I have the amazing Glow protein for breakfast. And you can look and you can see, well, what flavor. It was vanilla honeysuckle. It was really good. And a scoop. That's fine. And so you can just go through, you can download, there's an app for that. There's an app if you want to download it. It might be easier. Most of my clients really like that. And then let's see here, you can definitely do unsweetened, let's see, almond milk. I'm just typing in my breakfast. And then you can see if there's not a brand, you can just maybe type in a generic brand. But if there is a brand, you can just type in the brand first, right off the bat, whatever it may be. And then if you had more than 1 cup, you can always change it. If you had half a cup, 50, you can look and you can see all the different options here and find the one that suits that particular food the best. And then what happens, and this wasn't my whole breakfast, by the way, because I had mixed greens and I had a little bit of mango and some blueberries as well. But I don't want to hoard all of your time. So what you can do here is, I want this to be a little bit fuller so I can show you what happens. Then what happens here is it shows your total goals, your daily goal, and your remaining goal. And so I'm still in the green. As you can see, a lot of protein and fat. I just need to add a little bit more food so you can see what happens when it becomes a little bit more balanced. Let's see. So it says here 1 cup. I did half of a cup of mangoes, and then also had blueberries. and they were delicious. It's summertime right now, and those blueberries are something else. All right. So then you can kind of see where your ratios are, and you can just kind of fill in. You should definitely fill in your snacks, as you can see, your dinner, your lunch, and then don't freak out. My best advice would be if you do go over, just please don't freak out. This is all a learning lesson, and you can just note what to do better the next day. And then you can look at reports. So you can check your reports, and it will break down your all of these different amazing options, and you can kind of make you can easily make guidelines for yourself, and you can set new goals for the following week. So my suggestion would be go through a full week of this, and then look at your weekly report, your week in a glance. It'll kind of generate it for you. And then from there, you can just continuously make changes. So you got to start somewhere. MyFitnessPal is my favorite, one of my favorite recommendations for weight loss. I hope that you find this video helpful. You can feel free to like, subscribe, ask me questions. I am here to help. If you want more information on MyFitnessPal, I am happy to create more tutorials too. All right, thank you so much. Vitalize your day.